So recently, Dana White has come out and he's actually said that he's thinking about making a Nate Diaz versus KHAMZAT CHEMIEV fight. Now, this is a fight that I've discussed before on this channel only like a couple of videos ago. I think 2-3 videos ago, or maybe 2-3 days ago actually. And I think it's an interesting fight. The thing I was thinking is that I don't think these fights happen. He's calling out Nate Diaz and he's calling out Jorge Masvidal, and obviously allegedly the UFC doesn't pay that much money, right? But at the same time, I think these fighters, Nate Diaz is a lot more smarter than he lets on. Like he's a smart guy. He knows how to play his cards in terms of negotiating fights with the UFC, and he knows when to hold out and not give them what they want, and also do things in his favor so that he can get paid the most. I mean, there's a reason why he's quite, by his standards, back in the previous day when he used to fight just for the sake of fighting, he's quite inactive. I mean, apart from the Leon Edwards fight, he's been off for quite a bit of time. And the reason for that is because he knows, if he fights too regularly, his market value to some extent drops, because of the fact that you can oversaturate the market with your presence. So the fact is, because it's more of a spectacle to see him fight, because he fights more rarely than often, the UFC is more likely to pay him more money because of the fact that it feels like more of an event. There's a reason why these high pay-per-view fighters, like obviously Canelo's been very active, but generally speaking, pay-per-view fighters like the likes of Mayweather, they only fight once or twice a year, if that, because of the fact that there's a sense of anticipation when a fighter doesn't fight that often. When a fighter fights too often, I mean, it can to some extent decrease his market value because he's just out there too much and you see him too often. But when you see a fighter not fight for a little bit of a while, not to the point where he becomes completely irrelevant, but to the point where he's not as relevant as he once was, there's a sense of anticipation when he fights, and I think that's what Nate Diaz is doing. Like, Nate Diaz doesn't fight that often like he used to back in the day because he's trying to create more demand. Now, from my perspective, I don't think the Jorge Masvidal or Nate Diaz fight will happen. The reason is because both fighters are towards the end of their career at this point. I mean, Nate Diaz, even though he rocked Leon Edwards, I don't think he's going to go on forever. Like, he just isn't. He's been around almost forever. I mean, this is a guy that was in The Ultimate Fighter when he was like really young, like 21 or something, and he turned professional when he was like 18, like, and now he's like 33, 34. So he's at a point in his career where I don't think he's going to fight forever. And obviously KHAMZAT CHEMIEV is like 26, 27. He's very young. But from the perspective of these fighters, they're just trying to look out for cash out fights. And the fact is, KHAMZAT CHEMIEV, even though there's a lot of hype around him, I feel like he's a low risk, let me say that again, high risk, low reward type fighter for these fighters, because these fighters have been on pay-per-view. Jorge Masvidal has been on pay-per-view. Nate Diaz has been on pay-per-view. They've made millions now. So for them to take a fight where it is high risk, and it's relatively low reward, like, they'll get paid good money against KHAMZAT CHEMIEV, but it's not several million. They're not going to make 3-4 million fighting KHAMZAT CHEMIEV. They're not going to take that fight. It just doesn't make sense for them financially. So obviously they're discussing it with Nate Diaz, and I think the reason why Dana White's mentioning that, I think in the back of his mind he knows that Nate Diaz ain't going to take this fight. He could shock the world and take it, but I think the only way he'll take it is if the UFC offer him an astronomical amount of money, like you're talking like a couple million or maybe $1 million or $2 million, something like that. That's the only way he'll take a fight like that. He won't take that fight unless he's getting paid very well, because by all intents and purposes, Nate Diaz is towards the end of his career and KHAMZAT CHEMIEV is coming up. So from that perspective, it just doesn't make sense for him to take a fight against such a dangerous opponent. And in my opinion, I think Nate Diaz will lose against KHAMZAT CHEMIEV. I just think at this point in time, KHAMZAT CHEMIEV just looks like a force to be reckoned with, while Nate Diaz just looks like he's on his way out. So from that perspective, I think it's unlikely that fight will happen. And don't get it twisted, Nate Diaz, he's a warrior, but I think he's gotten a lot more smarter these days. I mean, he might take the fight, don't get it twisted, he's a warrior, he might take it, but at the same time I think it's unlikely to happen because of the fact that like I said, it's high risk, low reward. It just doesn't make sense to make a fight like that. So yeah, that's just my opinion. I just don't think Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz would take a fight against KHAMZAT CHEMIEV, because, to be fair, if they was to beat him, they will get a lot of hype on their name. I mean, it's undeniable because they're already popular as it is. But the only way I think that fight happens is if the UFC paid them an astronomical amount of money, like quite a reasonable amount of money, like not a short amount. Like you're talking about quite a bit of money for them to actually get that type of, for them to want to fight KHAMZAT CHEMIEV. But apart from that, I just don't see it happening. I don't see KHAMZAT CHEMIEV actually going in there against the likes of a Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal, because it is high risk, low reward, relatively speaking, for these fighters. So yeah. That's my opinion. Tell me your opinion, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.